Hey class, so here we are. I am going to run through with you the slides today on strategic planning and competitive advantage. So what is a strategic planning? Well, it's maintaining a fit between the organization's objectives and the resource objectives. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to basically understand, okay, this is what the organization wants, and here's what's going on, and here's the resources we have, but what are we going to do with those resources? What are we going to actually sell? And how can we use that to create a great market? So for instance, here's an example, Starbucks. Starbucks had, and obviously has coffee stores. But what they found was there was a niche happening with microbreweries that they might be able to take enormous advantage of. So how would they take advantage of it? Well, how they would take advantage of it is they would be able to, sorry, I'm going to move my thing. They would be able to take that and say, okay, well, if people like that microbrewery feel, they might like the notion of going to a Starbucks, getting microbrewery or specialty or reserve coffee. Therein lies the example there with the microbrewery almost, or what they call the Starbucks Reserve Roastery Tasting Cup. So it's a notion of taking advantage of what we're seeing as trends and making them into marketing buildings. The strategic plan is taking those objectives and evolving marketing opportunities and addressing kind of these two questions. What's the organization's main activity at that particular time, and how is it going to reach its goals? And how can we as marketers work that to our advantage? Now, sometimes we don't know what the organization's main objectives are, and that is actually a real problem sometimes. But the goal is to come up with a long-term plan that everybody agrees on, and then they commit the resources to making sure it's going to happen. So McDonald's. They found out that people were literally customizing a ton more than they normally did. So in the old days, you walked into McDonald's, you got your Big Mac, and you got it the way you got it. There was no options. But now we live in a customizable world where people want, well, hold the pickles, hold the lettuce, etc. Well, that was kind of bogging down the lines. Also, they were finding that many people didn't want to stand in line because they were used to using their iPads for everything else, and their phones, obviously, for everything else. So, two problems, one solution. The notion of creating these tablets, which allows people to customize their McDonald's offerings. In other words, I want a hamburger, but I want no pickles, and I don't want any mustard on it, but I want ketchup on it. And then, I want whatever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Therein lies the ordering. Now, granted, this became an enormous boom when we started to run into problems with getting personnel into fast food restaurants. During COVID, stopped using them. Now we're back to using them again, even though, with COVID restrictions, now there are usually little stations next to it where you wipe down the surface before you start. But what are we doing? Not as many personnel necessary in the front taking the orders. And people can customize, and we don't have to keep changing our cash registers. At the same point in time, in the back, we can have more people customizing. Strategically planning for the future. But this did not happen overnight. This is a lot of pieces that had to go into place in order to make this work at a McDonald's. Because remember, everything was coming off the cash register. Now it's coming off these tablets and a cash register, and it's got to go into the back, and they have to basically handle all these orders. So how do we figure out what our strategy is? There's several tools available, and they can help direct a company's portfolio and understanding where they should go. Three we're going to look at. The first one is Passlock. Basically, what we're trying to do is we're saying, here's our present products, here are the new products, here's the present market, here's the new market. Now let's see what our advantages are and our disadvantages are. So Starbucks, we have a market penetration presently, right, in coffee. And we find that people who have reloadable cards buy more. Okay, the observation. Good thing to know. From a marketing perspective, what does that tell us? That tells us we got to keep working on those reloadable cards. We need to market those. New products. They came out with Avia. Avia is the instant coffee that you pour in, that you use when you're not at a Starbucks. Now they've got another